Good morning, everybody. So today we are going to learn in geomorphology is about weathering, karst landscape, and mass movement. Okay, so yeah. As we have earlier discussed, what is a weathering? So this chapter begins with explaining the treatment of a exogenic system. Yesterday we were talking about mountain buildings where we were talking about endogenic movements. Similarly, here we are talking about exogenic systems, that is internal process that produces flow of heat and materials from deep below the crust, which is basically powered by the radioactive decay. But this is a solid realm of earth, and this all these chapters and all these processes are talking about how the landscapes are formed and various exogenic processes that simultaneously operate to wear it down, and endogenic system, that is the processes where with the air and movement of air and water, and how they are scarping the various earth materials. Okay. uh, Endogenic or exogenic systems, like exogenic processes, like we receive energy from the sun, and the energy which is there in the atmosphere, in the water, weather system, activate due to the movement of the particulates there. And exogenetic processes, like we have hydrologic cycle, like water cycle, rock cycle, tectonic cycle. They are all geological cycle of systematic, they systematically move. Okay. So when the like hydrogenic cycle, where water evaporates from the water body, it precipitates, it becomes a part of various water bodies like rivers, lakes, ponds, and ocean. And all these things act as agents of erosion as well. Just hold on. Yes. So endogenic systems is like it is an internal origin system, and the processes are driven by internal heat of the earth, which in turn, results from the radioactive decay of elements that is deep within the earth's surfaces. Now, the heat that bubbles upward, providing a huge driving forces that bends the cracks, lifts the landforms, and moves the earth rigid outliers are all the part of endogenic processes. Now, occasionally we see this rising energy empty directly into the surface of the molten lava. So typically endogenetic forces are mountain building forces processes, and in this process your all the geological cycle like hydrological cycle, rock cycle are all part of it. Like rock cycle, how does a rock cycle recycle itself? When it is dipping into the asthenosphere, it gets molten down. Then it becomes a part of primary rock formation. It comes out as a form of lava. It when it cools down, that lava material which it cools down is basically igneous rock, that is the primary rock. And when it is exposed to the weather element and the element in the atmosphere, it gets degraded, and it gets eroded from that place and gets settled in some other place. With that deposition, it becomes a sedimentary rock. And again, when it gets submerged, or due to pressure or chemical heat, they go into some changes, some chemical changes, some physical property which changes because of these. It the rocks, the secondary basic rocks, they metamorphize. That is marble. Marble again, marble is a form of a metamorphic rock, because it is a calcium sedimentary rock, calcium based sedimentary rock, which metamorphize under pressure, heat, or or any other chemical influence in those areas. So this is a rock cycle which is also associated with the tectonic cycle, and this tectonic cycle is also associated with hydrologic cycle. So these cycle are all interrelated with each other. Okay, so endogenetic forces are the forces which works from within the earth, and exogenetic forces are external elements which acts upon on the basic geological cycle. Okay, so let's talk about exogenetic forces. Exogenetic forces are external origin, and this process are given by the energy in the sunlight. And the sunlight causes the air to move, and water to lift it into mountains and ocean, waves, like ocean waves and all these things which rises, movement of water. So these moving fluids are they erode the solid surface or erode the rocky surfaces, and they carry the broken pieces of these rocky surfaces but into the and then they carry it away and deposit into some other places. That is erosional and depositional processes. So these broken pieces, when they are carried away and deposit and fill the place in somewhere else, they form sedimentary type of rocks or land features. In other words, exogenetic processes are mountain destroying or the feature destroying processes which degrade a particular feature and deposit it somewhere else. So it exogenetic processes is a mountain destroying. One is a mountain building process, another one is mountain destroying processes. Overall, mountain building process like endogenetic process act such a much faster than the mountain destroying or the exogenetic forces. Okay, so we would not have mountain at all if if you see that these exogenetic processes, basically weathering and erosional activities, are faster than the mountain building processes. Okay, so by the time the Himalayas would have come up, it would have been eroded away by the movement, flow of the river, like Ganga and Brahmaputra and all those things, right? So they are all of a slower process as compared to endogenic processes. So endogenic processes is much faster than that of exogenic processes. Let's again first brush up what is weathering. So we have noticed that highways in mountainous and cool climates are that appears rough and broken. These roads experiences freezing weathers and seems to break chunks break into big chunks in the winter season. And maybe the older marble structures are also cut it away, such as tombstones that is dissolved by the tombstones, or you can call limestone. Basically, tombstone is limestone. This is another word for limestone is tombstones. Or sedimentary rocks, they get dissolved away with the rainwater, and physical and chemical composition of weathering processes erode them away. And we have discussed the erosional process, and in that process they deposit it somewhere else. The key learning concept of this topic is that we will be able to define the geomorphology, illustrate the forces that works on the materials, define the weathering processes for frost, frost action, crystallization, hydration, and all these actions which works as a weathering agents. Describe the susceptibility of different minerals for weathering, and then at the conclusion. So, what is geomorphology? That is the relationship between physical geography. Geomorphology is a science that analyzes and describes the origin, evolution from the spatial distribution of the landforms. So, it is an important aspect of study of physical geography and the understanding of spatial physical aspect of landforms. So, in an interesting example of geomorphology is the Grand Canyon of Arizona, or what do you call if you come in India, you will come across as uh, canyons of the Deccan Plateau, or the region will you will come across these features. Uh, so the erosion process that reduces the landscapes like Grand Canyon are the balance against the resistance of the material that make up the landscapes. So weathering and erosional processes are naturally oscillating process, and especially in the desertic areas or dry region with a high rainfall variability, has a high duration or high variations of erosion. So each rainfall event at these partially vegetated areas operates has an and having a very high slope, will have a surface runoff very fast and causing a fast movement of erosion. Now, defining the landscape, that is duration, that what are the processes which includes this concept, that is duration is a general term referring to all process that cause reduction or rearrangement of landforms. The principal denudational process affecting the surface material include weathering, mass movement, erosion, transportation, and deposition. Okay. So, what is interplay between the resistant rock of the structure and weathering variability? Weathering is greatly influenced by the characteristics of bedrocks. Okay, just hold on. Okay. So, weathering is greatly influenced by the characteristics of bedrocks, hard or soft, and soluble or insoluble, broken or unbroken, and differing resistance of rock, clubbed with variations in the intensity of weathering, results a different weathering pattern. So, what are the various types of weathering? Let's revise it again. We have mechanical weathering, we have chemical weathering, we have biological weathering, and we have differential weathering. So, various agents of weathering are fluvial weathering, fluvial processes, aeolian processes, glacial processes, and these are the basic processes which they act as an agent of erosion and weathering processes. Now, coming to this, then interaction between the structural element of the land and the denudation processes are complex. So, and represent a contrast struggle between internal and external processes. An important question to ask is whether or not the dynamic interplay is aggressive, involving and building landscape in orderly manner through stages. Now, do landscape initially form and subsequently age in graceful stages until they are flat? So, or does this interplay of force fluctuate back and forth across the no, never achieved or archived steady state of equilibrium? The debate in this geomorphology are that which is fueled by the fact that the landscape evolve on a much longer time span than there's a life human lifespan is. So a research grant for studying these geomorphology has moved away from simple descriptive classification. Okay. Now, a brief, review of geomorphic cycle model. What was given by W.M. Davis, principal contribution to the model of landmass denudation. Davis theorized that the landscape goes through an initial uplift that is accompanied by little erosion or removal of the material, and then the entire the is prolonged period of stability. So an idea here is to latter modify that the raised elevation of the landscape is such that the stream begins to flow more rapidly down the hill, cutting both headwards and downwards, which is a cyclic process. According to this cyclic model, the landscape eventually evolves into old erosional surfaces, and and he had also said that though it has helped launch the science of geomorphology and was innovative at the time, and was also too simple to and did not account for any process being observed, a systems theory entered geomorphology through not generally accepting today. He is also thinking about evolutioning or revolutionizing the landscape as it is still influences. Okay. So now, the principle, considering in the dynamics of equilibrium model is that the balance between the tectonic uplift and the reduction by the weathering and erosion between the resistant rock and the careless attack of the weathering and erosion is summarized by the dynamic equilibrium model. The dynamic equilibrium model is a balance act between tectonic uplift and erosion between the resistance of the crust material and the work of a denudation processes. The landscape evidence ongoing adaptation to rock structure, climate, local relief, and elevation. The dynamic equilibrium demonstrate trend over time and endogenic agents such as earthquakes and volcanic eruptions or endogenic events, and may provide new sets of relationship for landscaping. Description of condition on hill slope that is right at the geomorphic threshold. As a change conditioning, as a change, the conditions is that uh, provides a new set of relationship for the landscape. The system eventually arrives at geomorphic threshold. or at the point which is the system that breaks through a new set of equilibrium and relationship and rapidly regains the landscape materials. Now, according to the slope, as part of the landscape, are often system and seek an angle of equilibrium along the force described here. The conflicting forces work together on slope to establish optimum compromise inclination with that is balance these forces and geomorphic thresholds in reaching when and condition in the balance is altered. Many factors may alter the hillside equilibrium, such as earthquakes or building of houses or dams. All the forces on the slope and the compensate by adjusting a new dynamic equilibrium. Okay, so now this image shows that a slope is the disequilibrium here. Now what is happening? This is an image of a landslide or mass movement. So that this is a disturbed hill slope in the image here, and this midst of compensation adjustment and the failure of the structural slope cause a landslide into the river and set a disbalance or disequilibrium condition. As a consequence, the new dam of the material through the stream into disequilibrium between the flow and the sediment load. So that there's an balance in every flow and movement. So one, if any one factor goes to change, the automatically there will be other factor which will change. Because this is a landslide which has happened on the banks of the river, there will be a sudden influx of the sedimentary load in the river system here. Okay, so what are the factors that may push a slope beyond its geographic threshold? Okay, geomorphic threshold is like the slope seeking an angle of equilibrium among the forced forces that describes it. In other words, the slope exhibits a maximum incline that balances the conflict forces, and a geomorphic threshold. It is reached if some one condition in the balance is altered. So when this occurs, all forces on the slope compensate by adjusting a new dynamic equilibrium. A slope is an open system responding to variable inputs and producing a variable outputs. Angle of equilibrium among the geomorphic forces are that endogenic processes here and exogenic processes. If you see here, there's an exogenic processes, that is the weathered material are adding up to the slope. Okay, endogenic processes is which is pushing it higher up into the ground, and this is an exogenic process which is happening on the surface, the movement of a geomorphic threshold which it cannot take anymore, and it keeps on weathered material are removed from the slope. So higher it is the elevation, the more exogenic process is faster. The lower the the elevation is, the faster will be the endogenetic processes will be. So whether the general component of an ideal slope is that is been illustrated in the image, the basic slope component that vary with the condition of the rock structure and climate. The slope generally feature an upwaxing slope near the top. So convex surface curves downward and greater into the free face below, and the presence of a free face indicators on the outcrop of the resistant rock and form a steep scarp of cliff. Slope will form the free face in the debris slope, and which receive rock fragments and material from above. The debris slope grades into a warning slope, and convex slope along with the base of the slope is, erosional material generally slope to a continuous decrease in angle of the valley floor. So the slope in an open system seeking an angle of an equilibrium conflict the force working simultaneously on the slope to establish an optimum compromise that is inclined the balance of the forces. Slope mechanism, here's a slope mechanism which we can talk about, is the relationship between the rate of weathering and the breaking of the slope material clubbed with the rate of mass movement and material erosion. The slope, the shape slope, the slope is stable if it is strength exceeds these denudational processes, and unstable if materials are weaker, then these processes are faster. So here, if you see the soil processes which is eroded, that is waxing the slope, that is a convex surfaces. It is a convex surface. If you can see here, it's a convex surface. All right, this is a free surface. This is become, because of the erosion, it becomes smooth and steep. Okay, this is a porous material which is lying beneath as a bed, bedrocks. Debris slopes are something which has been eroded from the higher elevation and deposited here. Okay, and then you have the entire coastline is being transported. This from here to here is all transportational phase. Then from here to here is all depositional phase, where it is depositing all the sediments that is it is bringing along the slope. Now, describing the weathering processes operating on an open expanse of bedrock, does how does the rigorous development and go, how the sediments thrives. The rock at near Earth surfaces are exposed to both physical and chemical weathering processes. Weathering encompasses a group of processes by which the surface and subsurface rock disintegrate into mineral particles, or dissolve into minerals in solutions. This weathering does not transport the transport the weathered material. It simply generates this raw material for transportation by agents of winds. Now, water and gravitation is almost the areas where the upper surface of the bedrock is partially weathered and broken down. Okay, just hold on. Yeah. So when rock is broken and disintegrated without any chemical alteration, the process is called physical weathering and the chemical or mechanical weathering. In mechanical weathering, the agents are moving water and wind. The physical weathering is greatly increases the surface area on which the chemical weathering may operate, and chemical weathering refers to the actual decomposition and decaying of the constituted minerals in the rock due to the chemical alteration of these materials. A similar example of the chemical weathering is the eating away of cathedral fades and or or dissolution of the limestone. Like for example, Taj Mahal is made of marble, and due to air pollution and the level of acidity which is rising in the temperature and the rainfall there, it is corroding the stone there. So it has an eroding material. So in anywhere we have limestone type of materials lying there, that can have a that can, and being exposed to the physical, after the physical weathering, it will be more susceptible to chemical weathering. Now, describing the relationship between the mesoscale, climatic condition, and the rate of weathering is, and weathering activities is important in determining the weather rate or climate elements. Now, including the amount of precipitation, overall temperature pattern, and any freezing thaw cycle. Physical weathering dominates the drier region. Cooler climate or chemical weathering are dominating in the wetter climate or wetter region, warmer areas. Extreme dryness reduces most of weathering to a minimum, whereas experience experienced in desertic climate, that is hot and wet tropical and equatorial rainforest climatic, most of the rock weathered material are rapidly weathered and tend to have a deep below the surfaces. Okay, now these WB and AF are the climatic description, Köppen's climatic description. Now, what is the relationship among the pattern, rock and parent rock and the parent material and regolith and soil? So the bedrock is apparent, the rock from which weathered material, regolith material or soil develops. So while a soil is relatively youthful, it is a parent rock is traceable through the similarities in the composition. This unconsolidated fragmented material, also known as sediments, combines with the weathered rocks from the parent material, form the soil, and it evolves. So the physical weathering, for example, or mechanical weathering, like greatly increases the surface area in which chemical weathering can take place. For example, physical weathering is a in a frost action. When water freezes, the volume expands, and this creates a powerful mechanical force which expands the crack in between. And once the crack is enlarged and the frozen water melts down, it becomes water soluble, and it dissolve all the soluble materials from the rock and flows away. So that is a first mechanical weathering activating, and then the chemical weathering, it becomes susceptible to the chemical weathering. Why freezing water such as effective physical weathering agent is that freezing water expands in volume when it freezes. So what is chemical weathering? It is the contrast that sets of processes to a physical weathered material. Okay. Okay. So, what is meant by the term, spheroidal weathering, and how is spheroidal weathering is formed? Spheroidal weathering is an example of way of chemical weathering at which attacks the rock materials, and it has a sharp edges and corners of the rock and are rounded at the alteration of the mineral processes. Now, though the rock or the joints in the rock offer more surface of opportunity for the weathering, water penetrates joints and fractures and dissolves the rock weaker minerals and cementing materials in between, resulting in a rounded edge that are the basis of the some spherical weather material, like you will find it into on the bedrocks of beds, river beds. You will find round shape of rocks and pebbles that are because of the physical weathering, the rest which is dissolved away remains as a chemical remnants. Now, iron minerals in rock are susceptible to which mechanic chemical weathering. The characteristics is associated with the type of weathering. So, iron mineral is a rock that is susceptible to oxidation and chemical weathering that occurs when oxidation combines with certain metallic mineral from to form oxide. Rusting of iron in the rock or soil produces the reddish brownish strand. Okay. So, with what kind of minerals do carbon compound react, and under that circumstances does this reaction occur? So what is this weathering process is called? The carbon compound reacts with the carbonic acid, and this is called acidification of the weathered material, or acidic rainwater. It can melt and dissolve away. Now, describing the development of limestone, topography, what is the name applied to this landscape? For what was this time is driven? The limestone is abundant on the earth, and many landscape are composite of this. Now, these are the quite susceptible. So, these limestone are the hallmarks of the karst topography, and originally named for the Kars Plateau in the former Yugoslavia areas. Now, where these processes were first studied, that is approximately about 15% of the Earth's lands are area has some developed karst, with outstanding examples found in southern China, Japan, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Yucatan of Mexico, Kentucky, Indiana, New Mexico, and Florida are some of the examples of karst formation. Limestone and karst regions are here. Like here, if you see on the some parts of Rajasthan and Gujarat, you will come karst formation. Some small patches in the country also there, and in Africa there are some spots of karst formation. In America, in Latin America, even in some parts in Russia and European countries. Some of the unique erosional and depositional features finding in the limestone caverns is that we will go across the stalagmites and stalagmites in these areas. The condition which is necessary for karst formation is the limestone must contain about 80% or more calcium carbonate, and joints and cracks and pipes and other opening must exist for water to flow. So, it must be an asserted zone between the ground and the surface and the water table. So it has to be in between the ground surface and the between the water table, where we come across as the karst formation. Some vegetation must occur at the orogenic acid and towards the pre coating of the water. So the karst in this is what happens is, where you have the bedrocks are based on limestone, with erosional activities which is happening, hydraulic activities which goes underneath, causes many areas to sink and dissolve. So big sinkholes happens in these areas. So this is an example of a Florida karst. Here if you see in an image, satellite image, there are many in this area. You will come across many water bodies. These blue polygonic areas are water bodies, and it shows that there is a large network of karst formation beneath the surface. Now they are all responsible for mass movement and driving force and resisting force, and they are all geomorphic threshold, which is up to the landform changes before the uh, the new set of relationship between the hydraulic processes and geomorphic processes takes place. So, what are the classes of mass movement that is we have is mass movement, fall, slide, flow, creep, rockfall, topple. They are all form of mass wasting or mass movement. Okay. Then we have names which describes the mud flow is associated with many places we come across as mud flow, like I've shown you in that previous picture, where the entire hilly region was facing a landslide or mud flow, and it was creeping into the riverbed. So, what is the sacrification, and why it should consider a type of mass movement? Several examples for sacrification is that why our humans are significant to geomorphic agents. So large open pits and strip mining and mining processes are also rising the process of weathering and change in the landscape. Like this is a strip mining in on the earth, where we can see that how it is carved. So it can it also, from the satellite image also, it will look like a geographical features. So mass wasting, this is the downslope movement of the earth under the influence of gravity, and the various factors in mass wasting is discovered, is discussed and included in the rock's effective strength and porous spaces, as well as different types of mass wasting such as creep, slump, landslide, image of an actual landslide illustration, and so on, many other phenomena. Now with this we come to an end of our learning chapter. I would request all of you to go to your LMS and take the quiz.